Last Easter, a group inspired by the so-called Islamic State attacked churches and hotels in Sri Lanka. The bombers' every move was captured on security cameras.
He got quite close to my face, and I remember finding that really uncomfortable. He was almost breathing in my face.
8 men triggered huge suicide bombs. 269 people were murdered.
The door just opened. I saw something that I never thought that I would see.
In the months and years before, the Sri Lankan government had dozens of warnings.
It is unconscionable that senior elected officials were made aware of warnings and of intelligence reports and absolutely failed to investigate.
Despite the warnings, the bombers remained free.
Had they acted promptly, there would be no Easter Sunday attack.
Colombo, the capital of the island paradise of Sri Lanka. Easter Sunday, a year ago.
Shangri-La Hotel is new and is a very luxurious hotel. You know, whenever I book to Sri Lanka, I always tend to stay in a Shangri-La Hotel. So I kind of feel safe and secured being in that hotel.
A British academic who'd fled from Sri Lanka as a child refugee is visiting.
I remember just looking through the window and I thought, wow, it's a beautiful day.
2 Australian friends are staying at the same hotel.
It was amazing. The beach was right in front of the big glass windows at the front of the hotel, and it was lovely.
It was a lovely place. One of the nicer hotels I've ever stayed at.
That Easter, CCTV captured a handful of local men checking into several luxury hotels in the city. Two of them at the Shangri-La. Less than a mile away from the Shangri-La, the Cinnamon Grand Hotel.
That morning, Kieran woke up early and said he was hungry. He was insistent that we go early. And so we collected my mother and walked to the Cinnamon Grand.
Dulcini lived in America with her son. She took Kieran to Sri Lanka to visit his grandmother.
I'm very proud of my Sri Lankan heritage. I wanted Kieran to love it as I do. And he did. He felt so at home from, day one.
Sri Lanka is a melting pot of different religions, the majority Buddhists, but also Hindus, Muslims, and Christians. Easter Sunday is a special day for the Christians.
Easter Sunday is a very joyful day for all the Catholics. After the Mass, they go to their own houses and they have some parties, to share the joy of the resurrection of Jesus.
St. Sebastian's Church in Negombo, 20 miles north of the capital. It's one of the largest churches on the island.
There were nearly 800 to 1,000 people inside the church. So the church was packed, especially with the elderly people.
A young man walks towards the church. Anusha and her family are in the congregation.
අපිට ඒ දවස් හරි වැදගත්. අපි 4 දිනකට මේක වැදගත්. අවුරුදු 24ක් පුරාවටම ඒක අපි හැම පාස්කු ඉරිදාවකම පවුලක් විදියට අපි ඒ විදිහට යනවා. අපි අලුත් ඇඳුම් ඇඳලා හරි ආසාවෙන් තමයි පල්ලියට යන්නේ.
The man, wearing a rucksack, crosses the courtyard and enters the church.
පළවෙනිම බංකුවේ තමයි මගේ මහත්තයයි පුතයි වාඩිලා හිටියේ. ඊට පිටිපස්සේ බංකුවේ මයි දුවයි වාඩිලා හිටියේ. පිරිමි කෙනෙක් ඇතුල් වෙනවා දැක්කමම ලොකු ට්‍රැවලින් බෑග් එකක් දාන් හිටියේ ලොකු එකක්.
We heard people shouting in agony. Some were crying, some were shouting, and some were asking the help, please help us.
පැස්සක් වගේ වහිනවා වගේ මං හිතන්නේ උළු කැට වැටුණා. මා වැළුණා. දුව ඉස්සරහා බංකුවට වැටිලා හිටියා. ඔළුවේ මේ පැත්ත එයාගේ ලේ තිබුණා. දුවට කතා කරා දුව කතා කරේ නෑ. මගේ මහත්තයාව හොයාගත්තේ එයා දාලා තියෙන ඇඟිලි වල ගොඩක් මුදු. ඊට පස්සේ මං දැනගත්තා මගේ මහත්තයයි පුතයි ඉවරයි කියලා. මං දුවව බේරගන්න තමයි කෑ ගැහුවේ ඊට පස්සේ.
Anusha and her daughter are rushed to hospital. But doctors can't save Sajini.
මගේ දරුවෝ දෙන්නයි මහත්තයයි නැති වුණේ මැරුණ එක සැරයයි. මං තප්පරෙන් මැරෙන එක්කෙනෙක්.
At the same time as the attack on St. Sebastian's, another bomb explodes in Colombo. "54 people are killed at St. Anthony's Shrine." Two minutes later, just over a mile away at the Kingsbury Hotel, another bomb goes off. Three huge bombs had exploded across the island in quick succession, targeting Christians and tourists. Who could be capable of planning such a deadly and sophisticated attack? It was what one expert who'd tracked the growth of Islamist extremism round the globe for 25 years had long feared.
The attack clearly demonstrated that the Islamic State or ISIS has now arrived in Sri Lanka, and there was a new wave of terrorism that was going to affect Asia, and Sri Lanka was going to be a key center.
That morning at the five-star Shangri-La, guests are waking up, unaware a hotel has been bombed just 500 yards away.
We were on our way to breakfast, and then we realised it was Easter as we were getting into the lift, and so I said Happy Easter, and He set it back.
2 other guests check their rucksacks before they head towards the lift. As they make their way down to breakfast, they are smiling.
We walked into the restaurant past all of the stations of food. I remember picking up a little smoothie thing on my way. Our waitress was trying to find us a table right by the big glass windows at the front.
As we were standing there, these 2 men pushed past us, and it was quite odd.
Right behind the Australian couple, the hotel's CCTV shows the men.
They were swinging around these big backpacks that I found quite odd at the time, particularly because I only had my room key with me and my phone.
They were sort of standing even closer than you and I are right now, and talking in quite hushed tones.
One guy was looking quite intently around the area. He got quite close to my face, and I remember finding that really uncomfortable. He was almost breathing in my face.
Sam and Hanneke are given a table at the far end of the restaurant.
Hanneke stood up. She said, "I'm going to the buffet area." And she must have taken 3 or 4 steps.
All I remember was hearing a sound coming from my right. The next thing I knew, I was on the ground, and I couldn't hear anything.
Everything's normal, and then it's not. It was like the air was sucked out of the room almost. Glass blows out, roof comes down. I remember water coming down. It's almost indescribable how just the power.
And slowly sound came back. I could hear some sounds from people who sounded like they were in pain.
And the next thing I knew, I was on the ground, and Hanneke was sort of crawling towards me, saying, "I'm scared, I'm scared."
I could see water kind of gushing from the ceiling, and I thought maybe that the building was collapsing in on itself.
The man who triggered the massive bomb at the Shangri-La was the ringleader of the Easter attacks. He came from the east coast of Sri Lanka, from Katankudi, a Muslim town. His name was Zahran Hashim.
Katankudi is the ground zero of terrorism. That is where the Islamic State emerged in Sri Lanka. This is Zahran's hometown. And it is in Katankudi that Zahran planned, prepared the terrorist network that mounted the bloody Easter Sunday attack.
Zahran studied here at this traditional Islamic college. For 3 years he memorized the Quran, taught by Maulvi Aliyar.
இவர் மிகவும் வறுமையான ஒரு குடும்பத்தைச் சேர்ந்தவர். இருந்தாலும் பாடங்களிலே இவர் ஒரு கடித்தனமாக இருந்தார்.
From an early age, Zahran was different from the other students.
அந்த நிலையிலே இருந்து அவர் மாறுபட்டுத்தான் சில குழப்பமான இந்த விஷயங்களை எங்களோடு அவர் ஆக்கியூ பண்ணி கொண்டிருப்பார். இவருக்கு நாங்கள் எவ்வளவுதான் நல்வழிப்படுத்தினாலும் அவர் நல்வழிப்படக்கூடிய ஒரு வகைக்குள்ள ஒரு பிள்ளையாக நாங்கள் பார்க்கவில்லை. ஆகவே முற்றுமுழுதாக விலக்கி விடுவோம் என்பதாக நாங்கள் விலக்கி விட்டோம்.
Zahran moved to another mosque. He started up his own increasingly hardline group.
அப்பாவிகளை கொல்லலாமா அப்படின்னு கேட்கிறாங்க. அப்பாவி என்ற ஒரு சாரார் முதல் இஸ்லாத்தில் இல்லை. ஒருவன் முஸ்லிமாக இருப்பான் அல்லது காபிராக இருப்பான். இஸ்லாம் மனிதர்களை.
By 2016, Zahran Hashim was producing more and more extremist videos, like this one, distributed on YouTube and Facebook. His preaching alarmed Muslim leaders, who alerted the authorities.
When I looked at the video, I was shocked. He's supposed to be a learned person in Islam, and that, he was talking all rubbish. The Islam does not preach violence against innocents. So we, as a group, immediately reported him to national intelligence.
Zahran was put under surveillance, but allowed to continue his inflammatory speeches, often attracting large crowds. 2 years before the Easter attacks, he hired this hall in Katankudi to make a very public declaration. It rang alarm bells with the secretary of the local mosques, Abu Salih Uwais.
He spoke in support of the ISIS,
the Islamic State.
An Islamic State.
Did the authorities know what he was saying?
We were informed by the spectators at the meeting that there were intelligence officers as well.
For decades, the different forms of Islam coexisted peacefully in Katankudi, but Zahran now claimed that Sufi Muslims were heretics. His group turned up with swords in the streets of a Sufi neighborhood. Secretary of the main Sufi mosque, Malvi Sahlan.
ரெண்டு பேருக்கு முறையில் ஒரு வாய் பேச்சுவார்த்தை சண்டையாக மாறுற சூழல் வந்து அந்த நேரத்தில் என்டிஜே பீப்புள் அவங்க கையில் கொண்டு வந்திருந்த வாள்களை எடுத்து இவங்களுக்கு வெட்டுறதுக்கு தயாராகி வெட்டினாங்க. வாள் வெட்டுப்பட்டது ஒருவர், மற்றது அடிபட்டு தாக்கப்பட்டது ஒருவர், 2 பேருக்கு தான். இவர் உடனடியாக கைது செய்து நடவடிக்கை எடுங்கிறதையும் தெரிவிச்சிருந்தோம்.
Zahran somehow got away. The Sufi community took to the streets. They posted photos on social media, warning Zahran was trying to establish the Islamic State group on the island. Yet the police would fail to catch him for the next 2 years.
Every time we checked, they said, no, we are still trying to find where he is.
It seems incredible in an island like Sri Lanka, which has a very well-developed security apparatus, that they were unable to find this man.
Well, I don't think they took it seriously enough, thinking that he could resort to terrorism, right? He was just taken in as a loudmouth hate-monger.
The government were well aware the Islamic State group had established links to Sri Lanka. In 2014, 4 Muslim families from here had gone to Syria.
"30 months before the Easter Sunday bomb blast, I revealed that in the parliament that there is a serious threat. 32 people are involved in the ISIS activities and have had their training in Syria. I categorically said that they might blast bombs. I requested the government to take action to prevent any kind of disaster that I predicted."
And what happened?
Nothing happened.
At the Shangri-La that Sunday morning, as people fled the bomb blast, CCTV shows a second bomber. watching where the survivors are going, waiting for the moment. 40 seconds after the first bomb, he triggers his.
I realized that I left my debit card back in my room, so I decided, let me just run back and get my debit card. And I remember just walking into the lift, just going down slowly, and suddenly I hear this big thud, big noise, and I can hear the lift next to me. It's kind of jerked. I hear screaming of children, screaming. But my lift was going down.
The second bomb has gone off right by the lifts, just outside the restaurant, to catch people fleeing the first one.
The lift stops, makes this like a ding sound. The door just opened, and I saw, and I can, I saw something that I never thought that I would see. The glass completely, where it should be one of the restaurants, is completely shattered. And I can see all of the bodies and bloods. All we were smelling is blood. The whole air smell of blood.
I've never been so scared in my life. Honestly, that feeling was just utter fear. I didn't know if someone had a gun. I didn't know if there were more bombs everywhere. I didn't know what to do.
Sam and Hanneke edge towards what's left of the window.
And I was sort of yelling out, what's going on, and they were sort of motioning to duck down. So that made me think, well, there's someone roaming around, picking people off.
As I was kind of walking towards Sam and looking down, I realised that the floor was just covered in pieces of people, I guess, and the insides of people. As I looked down and saw that, I noticed that from head to toe, I was covered in blood and like pieces of stuff as well.
Hanneke and I rushed towards that exit. Fortunately, we saw this group of sort of 6 kids running out as well, which was really, fantastic to see them survive. With one guy who was sort of struggling with all of them, so we ushered them out down the stairways and ran down the emergency exit.
For Kieran, it was a flashback to the bloody civil war that gripped Sri Lanka for 25 years. A war he'd lived through as a child. He was sent to England to save his life when his brother was killed.
When you see bodies, when I was young, when I was 11 years old, I saw my brother was shot and he died in my arm, and I seen all of that. But that was more dignified way, even to compare to what I saw in Shangri-La. Shangri-La is it's brutal.
Four months before the Easter bombings, in the Central Highlands, there was a clear warning Zahran was recruiting young Muslims.
Zahran was conducting Quran classes to young people. And the families gladly sent their children thinking that they were learning something good. They didn't realize that they were being radicalized.
Zahran was using his Muslim recruits to stir up ethnic violence. When Buddhist statues were vandalized at Mawanella, 13 young people were arrested. It's claimed they'd been inspired by Zahran. He was operating openly, but still the police failed to track him down.
We also found that Zahran was not only in Mawanella, he had a few other places where he was conducting classes. So, that is something which the investigators followed up, right? So they took it quite seriously, but they couldn't trace him.
Zahran even recruited followers from one of the wealthiest, most high-profile Muslim families on the island. They would be key to the funding of this complex plot.
The Ibrahim family is one of the biggest spice merchants in the country. And the father was well connected. And I do not believe that, the father even dreamt that his children would get into this.
The two sons, Ilham and Inshaf, helped run their father's lucrative spice business.
They were children who were driving around in BMW and Merc cars, right? And they were just normal modern kids. But of course, they had been religious.
They are the super rich in Sri Lanka. Both their sons, Ilham and Insaf, were recruited and they funded Zahran's group.
And it was Ilham who detonated the second bomb at the Shangri-La, just seconds after Zahran pulled the trigger on the first. That morning, near Zahran's hometown of Katankudi, a stranger arrives. He's seen on CCTV going into a mosque to prepare himself for the day ahead. 500 yards away, the Zion Church. Christians are preparing for the Easter service.
When I met the people, they was very happy to celebrate the day of the resurrection of Jesus. So that's a very happy day for them.
The pastor's son, Malkia, is there with his father.
He was very happy on that day because he wore the new shirt on that day, the purple one.
Chrysanthini is teaching Sunday school at the church.
Sunday school la vandu naanga sandoshama பிள்ளைகளுக்கு அங்க ஸ்பெஷல் worship மெசேஜ் எல்லாம் கொடுத்து கொண்டு இருந்தாங்க. பிள்ளைகள் நல்ல ஹாப்பியா இருந்தாங்க எல்லா பிள்ளைகளும்.
The young man at the mosque prays too.
அன்றைய நாளில் வந்து சண்டே ஸ்கூலில் வந்து நாங்கள் வந்து ஜீசஸுக்காக வாழ்ந்து நாங்கள் மரிச்சா நாங்கள் பரலோகம் போகணும், ஜீசஸோட வாழணும்.
The man from the mosque arrives at the church.
I noticed him. He wore that pink color shirt. When I noticed his face, he was sweating.
Was he carrying anything?
He is carrying a bag, the backpack like so.
Chrysanthini finishes Sunday school and sees her husband Ramesh across the courtyard at the entrance to the church.
இப்போ நான் ரமேஷை கூப்பிட்டேன், உள்ளே போவோம், வர்ஷிப் தொடங்கிட்டு உள்ளே போவோம். இப்போ அவர் சொன்னார், இல்லை ஒரு ஆள் நிற்கிறார், அவரோட நான் பேசிட்டு அவரை அனுப்பிட்டு நான் உள்ளே வரேன், நீங்கள் பிள்ளைகளோட உள்ளே போங்க. அப்போ ரமேஷ் அந்த இடத்துல சொல்லியிருக்கிறார், பேக்கோட சர்வீஸுக்குள்ளே வரக்கூடாது, சர்ச்சுக்குள்ளே வரக்கூடாது.
சதா காலங்களிலும் உயிரோடு இருக்கிறேன் என்ற நம்பிக்கையை எங்களுக்கு தந்தவரே உங்களுக்கு நன்றி. நாங்கள்
The Zion Church records the sound of their service starting.
நீர் எப்பொழுதும் நல்லவராயிருக்கிறபடியினாலே நன்றி. இந்த நல்ல காலை வேளையிலுமாய் ஆண்டவரே, நீர் அல்பாவும் ஒமேகாவும் ஆதியும் அந்தமுமாயிருக்கிறபடியினாலே நன்றி. நீர் உயிர்
எல்லாமே அப்படியே நின்றது. ரமேஷ் நின்ற இடத்துல வந்து நெருப்பு பற்றி எரிஞ்சு கொண்டிருக்கு. அவ்வளவு தீ அந்த இடம். எல்லாரும் சின்ன பிள்ளைகள், வளர்ந்தவங்க எல்லாரும் அங்கே இங்கே ஓடி தங்களோட உறவுகளை தேடிக்கொண்டிருந்தாங்க. என் ஹஸ்பண்ட் மற்றவங்களோட உயிரை காக்கும்படிக்காக ஜீசஸில் ஒரு ஏவுதலோடு அந்த இடத்துல நின்று செயல்பட்டார். சர்ச்சுக்குள்ளே இப்படிப்பட்ட ஒரு தெரியாத ஒரு தீமை விளைவிக்க வந்த ஒரு மனுஷனை போகாதபடி தடுத்தார். மற்றவங்க இதால் எத்தனையோ உயிர்கள் காக்கப்பட்டிருக்கிறாங்க.
Just before the service started, Pastor Kumaran had left the church to take another service nearby.
When I turned my bike, I noticed there's a big thick smoke coming out of that area. When I enter the church, it's bring the picture like it's my church, it's my people. When I notice the bodies, then only it's come into my mind about my children. Then I ask the people, where about my children?
14 children are killed, scores wounded. Pastor Kumaran searches all day in the hospital for his son.
Until the 6:15 of that evening, I don't know about my son's death. With the piece of cloth on his shoulder, from that only I identify that he is my son.
So that was the purple shirt that he was wearing for the first time?
Yeah, there's a piece of cloth on the shoulder. It's remained there.
Three months earlier, in a remote spot on the north coast, there was an explicit warning. Mohammed Taslim, a local Muslim councillor who'd been tracking Zahran's activities, led the police to an arms cache. 125 kilos of explosives and 99 detonators.
They knew after that camp was raided that Zahran was behind this. Had they acted promptly, there would be no Easter Sunday attack.
Once again, Zahran got away. After the raid, the councillor who led the police to the arms cache and his wife were left unprotected and paid the price.
நாளைய காலுக்கு தான் எனக்கு ஒரு சவுண்ட் வந்துச்சு, ஃபோன் வெடிச்சிற மாதிரி தான் எனக்கு அந்த சவுண்ட் விளங்கிச்சு. முழிச்சு பார்த்தா ஃபோன் வெடிச்சில் ஃபோன் பக்கத்தில் இருந்துச்சு. அதோட என்னமோ தெரியாண்டு இவரை நான் எழுப்பினேன், எழுமுங்கண்டு. அந்த எழுப்புறதோடு தான் எலும்பல்ல.
Zahran had sent one of his men to break into Taslim's house and kill him while he slept beside his wife. He was shot in the head at point-blank range.
அப்போ மௌத்தாய் பேத்தினாலும் யோசிச்சிருப்பேன். அப்போ மௌத்தாய் இந்த பேர் வரலாற்று எழுதப்பட்டிருக்கும். அனாதரவான நிலையில் ஒருத்தன் கவனிப்பாராட்ட நிலையில் நான் இருக்கிறேன்.
Taslim was paralyzed down his left side.
சண்டே நடந்த பாம் பிளாஸை பார்த்த டிவியில் பார்த்துட்டு அழுதாரு, சரியை மட்டும் அழுதாரு.
நிறையா சாமான் இருந்துச்சு. பாம்பை செய்கிறதுக்கான பவுடர், அதே மாதிரி பயங்கரவாத தேவையான அத்தான் சாமான் இருந்துச்சு. இதை தேடி பிடிச்சி இந்த வேலை நடந்திருக்காதுன்னு சொல்லி 250 ரூபாயும் பழி பண்ணணும்னு நினச்சேன்.
Taslim is a hero because he informed the Sri Lankan authorities that The Islamic State was building a terrorist training camp and a storage dump very close to the ocean, where more weapons and more explosives would come.
4 men were arrested after the discovery in the coconut grove. But one of them was soon released, Ilham Ibrahim, who went on to bomb the Shangri-La. Then the government of Sri Lanka received the starkest warning of all, 17 days before the attacks. The Indian security services told them Zahran Hashim was planning suicide bombings.
Zahran has brought explosives to conduct the attacks in Sri Lanka from India. Based on that, the Indian intelligence was able to map Zahran's network in India and feed that intelligence back to the Sri Lankan services.
"12 days before the bombings, the information was finally passed to the head of the police. A top-secret government document refers to Indian intelligence which said, Zahran Hashim and his associates are planning to carry out a suicide attack in Sri Lanka shortly. They are planning to target some important churches. Yet 2 days before the attacks, the man named in that intelligence, Zahran Hashim, and his accomplice were able to freely walk into the Shangri-La to plan their attack.
The Indian intelligence had live sources in Zahran's network, so they were able to provide very precise intelligence of even the targets and when the attack is going to take place. It is very rarely in the world, in the domain of counter-terrorism, where such accurate and precise intelligence is ever provided.
We always sat in the same formation at a table by the window. My mother and son both liked to look at the koi fish in the pond. We were just chatting about the day, and Kieran fetched juice for himself and for my mother.
At the Cinnamon Grand, CCTV shows Kieran returning from the buffet to sit with his mother and grandmother.
And I said, you know, sweetheart, it's past 9, we need to hurry a bit.
Across the restaurant is Inshaf Ibrahim, the elder son of the wealthy spice trader. He paces up and down. Then he triggers his bomb.
When I realized what was happening, it was the sound of my own screaming that brought me to awareness. I stood up and saw the carnage. The lights were off. There was glass, broken glass, water, bits of ceiling hanging, wires all over. And then I started hearing, you know, the screaming and seeing the bodies. I turned around and saw Kieran. He was slumped. And so I stepped around the table and grabbed his face and yelled, baby, baby, open your eyes, look at me. I saw a little flicker of movement, but he wasn't able to open his eyes all the way. I saw a restaurant manager and screamed to him to come carry Kieran out.
In the rush to hospital, Dulcini and Kieran are separated.
I was placed in a wheelchair, my mother as well, and wheeled off. As we entered the emergency, I recognized my son's foot. He was on the first bed. I would know his foot anywhere. They were never able to restore a heartbeat or circulation. He'd been struck directly to the heart by a piece of shrapnel. My poor baby didn't have a chance.
In the weeks before the attacks, Zahran moved his group into this safe house in Colombo, one of a dozen around the island, and he set up more training camps.
To mount a coordinated simultaneous attack within 25 minutes, 7 strikes, it required very significant planning and preparation, recruitment, radicalization, the finance, the training, the surveillance and reconnaissance of targets, and then maintaining the security of the operation to successfully mount that attack.
Zahran and his group prepared a video to make clear who had inspired them. They pledged allegiance to the leader of the Islamic State group.
الشيخ أبا بكر البغدادي القرشي تكبير.
5 days before the bombings, a motorcycle was blown up near Katankudi. It was a test run. On the very morning of the bombings, just a couple of hours before, Indian intelligence sends yet another warning of an imminent attack on churches and tourists. But still no action from the authorities. CCTV captures an 8th bomber preparing to attack another luxury hotel, the Taj Samudra in Colombo. A rucksack on his back, he takes a lift alongside a woman and her 2 children. This bomber had direct contact with the Islamic State group.
The key IS link to the Sri Lanka attacks is by a man called Jamil.
Jamil Mohammed came from this small Muslim village in the Central Highlands. His family were wealthy tea traders, according to Malvi Lebe from the mosque.
ஜமீல்ட குடும்பம் இந்த ஊரில் ஒரு கௌரவமான குடும்பமாக இருந்துச்சு. லத்தீஃப் ஹாஜியார் ஒரு காணியில் ஒரு பெரிய ஒரு பகுதி இந்த பள்ளிக்கு தந்தார்.
Jamil was a conscientious student.
வெரி ஆக்டிவ், வெரி நல்ல கெட்டிக்கார ஒரு மாணவனாகத்தான் அவர் இங்கே இருந்தார். எல்லாரோடும் அழகாக சிரித்து மகிழ்ந்தார். பிறகுதான் கேள்விப்பட்டோம் அவர் வெளிநாடுகளுக்கு போனதாகவும் பல வகையான கல்விகளை கற்றுக்கொண்டதாகவும். ஆனால் அவர் அங்கே தான் இப்படியான ஒரு பயிற்சியை பெற்றிருக்கலாம், அல்ல இப்படியான பிரெயின் வாஷ் நடத்தப்பட்டிருக்கலாம்னு சொல்லி நாங்கள் கருதுகிறோம்.
Jamil spent time in Britain. He studied at Kingston University in southwest London.
He was educated in the United Kingdom. During that time, he became a member of Al-Muhajirin of Anjem Chowdhury. So he was radicalized in the United Kingdom.
Okay, my dear Muslims, we're going to wrap it up here, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all guidance.
The British Islamist Anjem Chowdhury was later convicted of inviting support for the Islamic State group. Jamil also linked up in Australia with this man who became an IS recruiter in Syria.
So I invite the Muslims to come here. I tell you that this is the land of life.
Jamil tried to join IS in Syria himself, but was turned away at the Turkish border.
Once I got home, I started analyzing even deeper.
Back in Sri Lanka, Jamil teamed up with Zahran and made a crucial link to an IS cell in India.
Zahran's group in Sri Lanka was directed by a network that was in South India. And that network is directly linked to the Islamic State in Syria and Iraq.
That Easter Sunday, Jamil walks into the Taj Hotel restaurant and takes out his phone. It seems that he is waiting for a message. His rucksack, weighing 50 pounds, is packed with iron nails, ball bearings, and a high explosive that's a hallmark of the Islamic State. Jamil repeatedly presses the detonator, but it won't work. Frustrated, he decides to leave. Minutes later, he checks out. Unsuspecting porters help him with his bags. Then he hails a tuk-tuk. Jamil checks into a small guest house, then heads to a nearby mosque. He seems to agonize over what to do. Early in the afternoon, he returns to the guest house. The explosion is caught on CCTV. Jamil kills himself and 2 guests. As the police finally follow up leads they've had for months, they surround the house of the man who bombed the Shangri-La, Ilham Ibrahim. His pregnant wife detonates a suicide vest, killing herself, her 3 young children, and 3 police officers. Police track down Zahran's family. As they approach, his younger brothers record a video.
Inshallah, குஃபார் நாய்கள் எங்களை நெருங்கி விட்டார்கள். இன்ஷாஅல்லாஹ் நாங்கள் அவனுக்குரிய தகுந்த பாடத்தை கூட்ட போகிறோம் இன்ஷாஅல்லாஹ்.
Rilwan has a bomb strapped to his waist. And Zayn sits with a child on his lap. They're with their father. Three suicide bombs left craters in the floor. The men killed themselves, their wives, and 6 children.
that is the ideology of Islamic State. That is, they radicalize entire families. The family unit become the main entity that carries out the attack.
In the house, the police discovered a drone. This video recording from it has never been seen publicly before. It indicated further attacks were being planned on tourist resorts.
Zahran's group filmed the seafront of Kathankudi using a drone. Zahran was building a drone capability, but they were in a very early stage. Certainly, Zahran would have built explosive-laden drones over time, because that was the direction in which he was moving.
At the end of the video, the man flying the drone is revealed to be Zahran's brother, Rilwan. So why did this group slaughter so many innocent people last Easter in Sri Lanka? The answer lies 3,000 miles away in Syria. A month before the Sri Lanka bombings, the Islamic State group were losing their last stronghold, surrounded on all sides in a battle to the death.
The instruction to attack churches, the instruction to attack luxury hotels came from IS Central. The Christians and the Catholics of Sri Lanka had done no harm to the Muslims, but they were brutally killed, maimed, and injured because that was the wish of IS Central in Iraq and Syria.
8 days after the Sri Lanka bombings, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the leader of the IS group, appeared in a video. It was his first since he declared a caliphate 5 years earlier.
وأما إخوانكم في سريلانكا فقد أثلجوا صدور الموحدين.
Baghdadi singled out the Easter bombers, praising them for avenging the loss of IS's last foothold in Syria.
أن معركة الإسلام وأهله مع الصليب وأهله معركة طويلة.
It was to be his last video before the Americans found his hiding place. Al-Baghdadi took his own life, but his group lives on.
The Islamic State is no longer a Middle East-centric group. It has spread in parts of Africa, in the Middle East, and in Asia. It has entered a phase of global expansion.
"269 people were murdered on Easter Sunday. Among them, at least 45 children.
එයාලා තමයි මගේ මුළු ජීවිතේම වෙලා හිටියේ. මගේ පුතා hina වෙච්ච ගමන් මේගේ හරීම සතුටින් සාමයෙන් තිබිච්ච ගයක්. දැන් මේක ඇත්තටම අමු සොහනක් වගේ. ඒගොල්ලෝ මං වගේ පෞල් කීයක ජීවිතේ නැශ කරාද? තමන්ටත් දරුවෝ ඉන්නවා කියලා හිතන්න ඕන. තමන්ටත් අම්මා තාත්තලා ඉන්නවා කියලා හිතන්න ඕන. මං එහෙම මිනිසුන්ට සමාව දෙන්නේ නැහැ.
We could have just postponed the service. If not, we could have just changed the date and the time, and we could have cancelled the service. But the authorities did not convey the message, pass on the message. They must be punished so that hereafter such a thing will not happen. They must be responsible.
There was no public alert, even when the attacks were underway.
When we sat down for breakfast that morning, I had absolutely no idea that there had been 3 terrorist attacks already that morning. There was no information communicated. We would have stayed home. We would have not gone to dine in the restaurant. I wouldn't be sitting here with you today. I'd be with my son.
So how could the Easter bombings have happened after all the warnings? The answer lies in the dysfunctional government of the day. For months before the attack, there had been a constitutional crisis. The president tried to sack his prime minister.
Our police had all the information, but they did not take so seriously. How can the politicians, the ministers in charge of those security divisions say that I was not aware? That is not an excuse. They must take the responsibility.
In the poisoned political atmosphere, vital information fell between the cracks.
There was more than 150 reports that the Prime Minister and the President knew of that was presented before government. Easter Sunday was not a failure of intelligence. It's a failure to appreciate intelligence and to act on intelligence.
The president declared he did not receive the all-important Indian intelligence. The Prime Minister says he was kept out of the loop on security matters.
It is unconscionable that dozens of people in government, the highest senior elected officials, were made aware of warnings and of intelligence reports and absolutely failed to investigate.
A year on, Sri Lanka's new government is still investigating why so many warnings were ignored and who is to blame.
Kieran's father and I feel that it is a call for accountability, the highest elected officials. We've had no acknowledgement that we've lost the most precious person in our lives from the Sri Lankan government. Nothing at all, not even a condolence.
The Sunday after the bombings, Christians gathered on the streets of Colombo for a memorial service. What happened in Sri Lanka is a warning to us all. The Islamic State group will exploit weak states, flawed systems that fail to act on intelligence, wherever they may be.